Good morning, everybody. As you can see from my mug, 'tis the season. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to do this video today. Um, I've been having some really bad migraine pain. The weather here has been kind of crappy in New York City, and my head is just not feeling it. Anyhow, this might be our last video for the year. I can't even believe I'm saying that, but with the holidays coming around and my birthday is next week, so my celebrations begin early. I don't know if I'll have time for our chats, but if something comes up that I need to share right away, I certainly will. Otherwise, we will continue our journey in my chronic migraine life together in the new year. It's so odd to even say that because this time last year I didn't even know I would be doing this or that I would get so much out of it, even though I'm essentially talking to myself. There is a lot of power in saying it out loud and telling your story out loud and hoping that you can help even one person and whatever part of their journey they're up to. So with the holidays around us, anxieties are usually at an all-time high, just in general. So that's what our topic is today. I am not normally an anxious person. I don't normally get anxiety attacks or panic attacks. I am a pretty strong-willed person, very strong emotionally, working on being strong physically, and I'm very self-reliant. And even though I know I can take care of myself, sometimes we don't always want to, but I know ultimately I can get myself through anything. And so that's always been a really good source of comfort for me. But lately, I've been feeling more and more anxious just in general. Different things have come up with my health, nothing serious, of course, but just life as it was. And I've been thinking a lot about anxiety and how we deal with it or how I deal with it and what advice I could really offer someone else in a similar position. I want to stop before I continue any further and really be very clear. I am talking about regular anxiety, not an actual anxiety disorder. I do not suffer from actual serious depression or suicide thoughts or anything like that. And so if you are someone that is suffering, those are actually needs real help, I want you to please contact someone close to you, a hotline, look for help on a serious note. What I'm here to talk about today is just the regular cycle of life and how, as someone with a chronic illness, I go through regular cycles of highs and lows. Some of it has to do with my illness, some of it not. When I used to come off really serious migraines, there would be this high that you would get off of it. I guess your body's just way of dealing with the release of so much pain, serious pain, and I would be almost manic. I would be talking very fast and loud and wanting to do everything and everything, and my family would always look at me like I was out of my mind, but I think they got used to also seeing me not moving or not doing anything, and that was because I was in so much pain. I think my real personality was somewhere in the middle, but it was like, I don't know if endorphins is the right word, but it would be just a release, and so I would be all over the place. But whether I was in pain or not, I also was very emotional. I would go through bouts of real anxiety and real depression because of the way that my illness manifested its way into my life and how it changed my life and how I could never make plans and I couldn't be normal or do all the things that I just even wanted to do, small things. And so we go back and around this vicious cycle of, how I was feeling, what I was able to do, what I wasn't able to do, and it couldn't sort of stop it. Now that my illness has, I don't want to say that's in remission or taken a step back, it's taken it easy on me, more or less. It's always still there. It's always a thought in my mind. It's always still in the way. Like I just said, I might not have been able to even film. So you just don't even know. Still unpredictable. And that's That's the part that's hard to live with. That's what makes me anxious. Besides the anxiety that surrounds plans, like you don't want to cancel, you don't want to disappoint someone, you don't want to disappoint yourself. My third video on this channel was talked about fear of missing out, and fear of missing out even when you're present. And that has a lot to do with my chronic illness too, with my neurological disease. I could still be someplace, finally get to the place I wanted to be, but had retreated within myself. So even though I was there physically on the outside, on the inside I was inside trying to deal with pain or just struggling to survive, whether or not people around me knew it. And so you're still missing those experiences because you're not present in them. In terms of chronic illness, anxiety also comes out even when you're not in pain. And it might sound strange, but I spent a lot of the early years at my real worst being anxious of the pain that was going to come. Once you have that precedent set in your life, you know the pain your body is capable of inducing on you at any given time, you become anxious about being out in the world and it striking. I still get anxious now, not so much that my plans will have to get changed, because I've gotten really good at saying, okay, so you feel sick, these are the things, I've got the tools of my trade on me at all times, I know what my plan is of escape, whether I'm by myself, not, if I've driven, if I can't drive, whatever they are, I always have a game plan ready, at the ready, and it has gotten a little easier, but you're always just still afraid that you're not going to feel good, that you're going to not have the day that you wanted. And it's upsetting. It's upsetting. It's frustrating. And, it is what it is sometimes. I even now find myself talking to myself like, okay, so there'll be traffic, there'll be this, there'll be that, and the contingency is just, it'll be what it'll be. And sometimes you can't focus on the details and the what ifs. You will drive yourself out of your mind. But anxiety still presents itself. I have a couple of key ways of dealing with anxiety in my life, as it relates to my migraines and as it relates to just really anything. An activity I don't want to do, an appointment that I'm anxious about, a doctor's visit, cooking my first Thanksgiving dinner, small things, big things, stupid things, just because it's a Wednesday, whatever. These are sort of the things that I want to discuss with you, or share with you rather, and hopefully they'll help. The first thing, and they're in no particular order, is going to sound like avoidance, but it's temporary avoidance. If I feel like I have too much on my plate that I cannot emotionally handle on that particular day, I stop. I reevaluate what I absolutely have to do in that moment, and I pick something. I pick the things that can wait till tomorrow, and I move them to the side. Even sometimes visually on my calendar, on my phone, I physically move them to the next day, even if it's something that I might be able to do later on. It helps me visualize. I'm a very visual person. Okay, I just have to get through this, and then I'm okay. It's just this one hard thing, and then I can get through it. Or even if it's not a hard thing, it's just something you don't want to do, or you're just not emotionally in the mood for, you don't feel energized, you don't feel like yourself, you don't feel well. I just have to do this one thing. Or maybe I can just try to do one thing, and then I would feel better about myself. I find that I feel better about myself when I accomplish things, whether they're big or small, whether it's doing the laundry or making a dinner that's delicious that I had no idea what I was cooking earlier that day, or watching things and getting it off your DVR, anything, just because it feels like you've done something. I hate wasting time, and I hate feeling useless and without a purpose. And so even if the purpose is irrelevant and trivial, it's something. So if all else fails with that, if I can't get through the one thing that it is, then I just let go. I think everybody needs so-called mental health days, where you just have to stop. I'm just not in the mood. I just can't be bothered. I just have to stop. Giving myself permission to just sit here, to do whatever it is that I feel like doing. Flipping through my phone, watching TV, just pausing and disassociating from the things that I don't want to do. Just taking a break. If it means sleeping all day, if it means whatever it means to you to relax. That's it. I'm checking out. a lot of times I like to take really long hot showers, maybe like baths. I like locking the bathroom door, and something about being in that shower and just, even though I'm still thinking of a million things, I find I get my best thoughts in the shower, my most clarity in the shower. I would film these videos in the shower if it wouldn't change the rating on my channel. I feel like it's an escapism for me, the shower. A place where no one can get to you. I don't have my phone. There's no contacts. There's no alerts. There's no one getting to you. It's just peace. And that's what I really try to achieve in those moments. The next thing is I use my phone. I scroll through Instagrams. I purposely keep following accounts that I think are really funny and mindless. Heather McDonald's a famous comedian. I follow her not because she's mindless, but because she does this thing for the Real Housewives. She reenacts all the franchises with Barbie dolls and reenacts the dialogue, and it's ridiculous, but it's hysterical, and it's not rocket science, and it's something that takes you out of your own head. Whatever is spiraling around your head, whatever your stresses are in your life, it just stops because you forget you're watching Barbie dolls. Like, it's just ridiculous. And it makes you just laugh and take a moment and step back from what you're thinking of. Sorry for the clock is annoying. But it just really relaxes me. And while you have your phone in your hand, I also like to contact somebody I haven't heard from in a while. Maybe it's my favorite person. Maybe it's a relative or a friend, or shoot them a text, make a phone call. Again, it's distraction, but it's also the connection with someone that you care about. Maybe they'll tell you something funny, or they'll show a picture. I love seeing pictures of my little cousin or my best friend's children because they put a smile on my face. And again, it's just something that's calming, you know? When you're home, when you're anxious, it's one thing. Same thing with being sick. When you're out sick in the world, it's a much harder thing to deal with. So I always am in my own head going, okay, what is something else I can think about? I just have to get through the next 10 minutes. It's okay. Let me scroll through my phone. Let me send a text message. Let me think of something else, anything else. And so, you know, I always wanted to be sick at home, right? Because it's your comfort zone and you can deal with it how you want to. But when you're anxious, it's the same kind of thing. Whether you're out in the world or not, it's all internal. Even with pain, you have to be able to deal with it internally, whether you're outside of your comfort zone or not. And so I just try to really talk to myself because I'm the only one that's listening. You know, like I really want to be able to walk myself through it. The next thing is that if I still feel very anxious or just like I don't know what to do with myself, I physically get up. Like on Saturday, this past Saturday, I went to the gym. I've done it a couple of times, not go to the gym, but go to the gym when I feel like I just have bad energy or I just don't know what else to do with myself. I have a million things to do, but I'm unmotivated to do any of them. I'm just in my feelings and there's nothing really specifically going wrong, but just too much bad juju, as it were. So I find that if I physically move myself out of that space, laying on the couch or sitting in the same spot and just dwelling or trying to avoid it, it's like, you know what, I need to break free. So I go for a walk, I go work out. What I really have been doing a lot lately, and I noticed it more and more, making the connection that I was cooking. I find a lot of peace in my kitchen, especially when I'm home alone and I can just be. I can put music really loud. I can light candles. It's something about setting the mood, changing the mood in the room, you know? Changing the room sometimes helps. There is something, if you ever saw that movie, Julia and Julie, whatever it was, about that girl that followed along Julia Child's famous cookbook and made all the recipes. And in the beginning of the movie, she says something about that at the end of the day, no matter how hard or crappy a day is, she knows if she mixes eggs and sugar and flour, etc., she'll be able to make a cake. That's definitive. That there's certain things that doesn't matter what else is going on in life, that you could still create and still accomplish. I'm paraphrasing a great deal here, but I feel a lot of that too. I also find that the kitchen more and more lately is a place for me to be creative, to feel pride in myself, for feeding my family, for feeding them delicious, nutritious food, for coming up with something. And again, it's that moving, that burning of the energy, that being physical, with the preparation, the cooking, and the cleaning up, that gets me out of my own way. Now, there are a lot of other things you can do to be physical, but that's not for us to discuss today. But I find solace in my kitchen. And even when I'm feeling anxious, like 2 weeks ago, I went for a physical therapy appointment. I tore a ligament in my foot, and I went to see if they could help. And I was incredibly anxious there. I have really no idea why, because it's nothing that big of a deal, but I just was. And it was the day before Thanksgiving, and all I could think of was getting back to my kitchen, my safe space, like the haven. I'm just going to be cooking all the rest of today and doing what I want, preparing to host my first Thanksgiving, and just trying to visualize it and focus it, and that getting me back there. And then by the time I got home, I was actually in my kitchen. I couldn't have been happier. And so I think that we all need to find these spaces physically and emotionally within ourselves that we can get back to. Life can feel like a catastrophe at times. There's always a lot going on, whether it's good or bad, with our lives, with the people that we love around us. And at any given moment, one of those situations can escalate, something can happen. And so in order to prepare myself for those kinds of things, it's good to have a place to come back to, a place that makes you feel like you're the most you. And I feel like that, for me, reduces anxiety and fear and dread and all of the other things that the rest of my week may bring. Lastly, I've always done this. I don't really know why, is I take a deep breath and I follow my fear all the way through, my thought all the way through. I am going to be seeing an eye specialist soon, to talk about the cataracts that I have in my eyes, and figure out how soon I'll need surgery. And as an example, that brings me a tremendous amount of anxiety. And I try to understand why. Of course, no one wants any kind of surgery, but I follow it all the way through. Okay, so what's the worst case scenario? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. What is the worst thing that can happen if my fears actualize? In this particular case, my worst fear is I'm going to have surgery. But so what? It will be unpleasant. It will be inconvenient. It takes the control out of my life for a moment, and I'm really not good with relinquishing control. But so what? There's something they can do about it, something that can be fixed. What if the surgery doesn't go well? What if I need to have it again? There are always things that can be done. And so I try to acknowledge my fear, recognize it, and take a step back. Now, if it's something more serious, my mother had open heart surgery last year, and the month leading up to it, I was incredibly anxious. And I couldn't shake it. And I spent a lot of time late at night thinking about worst case scenarios. And of course, the worst case scenario there was that my mother died if the surgery didn't go well. And while I didn't let myself get to the point of what happened past, God forbid she had died that day, I felt like I had to let myself think of it for 4 seconds. Like, okay, she could die. Pause. Stop. Acknowledging that it was a possibility helped, and then I just took a breath and let myself really try to connect to my gut instinct. And I always had a good feeling that there would be a good outcome because we had found the right surgeon and done all the things properly up to that point. And then I just sit back and let it go. I didn't fester in the negative, but there is power for me, anyway, and acknowledging that there's negative outcomes, possibilities in all things. And just, when people are like, just relax, don't think about it, let it go. I can't do that either. Like, you need to acknowledge that bad things happen to good people sometimes. And sometimes we can control it and sometimes we can't. And pretending that doesn't exist only makes me more anxious, doing what you can. Sometimes I wish I wasn't this way, but I've tried to be better about it. I just need to cry. From stress, from relief, from anxiety, whatever it is, even if it's nothing, just to get it out. That holding it in is not good for me either. I'm not a person that can keep things to herself verbally or otherwise. I'm not good with holding in emotions, even if it's a conversation I don't want to have with someone. I need to say the words. I need to get it out. Otherwise, I feel anxious. I feel this physical sense of pressure on top of the emotional stuff. And it's just not a place I like to be in. So I need to get it out. So I find that helps also. Elizabeth Gilbert is an author. You will know her from her Eat, Pray, Love book, which I worshipped like many people. I connected to it on many levels. But a book that I connected to on a much greater level of hers is called Big Magic. I think it was the very next book after Eat, Pray, Love, if I'm not mistaken. I have 2 copies of this book. One is completely tore up with highlights and flags and everything. And I actually went to see her at Barnes & Noble, got my book signed and met her and heard her talk. And she says such obvious things in the book, but it's such a comfort to me. And I carry those words with me all of the time, especially in the days surrounding my mother's actual surgery and her recovery in the hospital, and really big moments in my life when I really have such severe anxiety that none of these tools I'm talking about or any other tricks are going to break. Is that you can be afraid, you can be anxious, you can be all of those things and still do the thing that you have to do or want to do. You just carry it with you. And when I had first read those words, it was groundbreaking to me, right? Because you think that you can't start a blog, you can't start a YouTube channel, you can't get eye surgery unless you're in a good space, unless you are completely void of all of those other emotions that prevent us from doing the things that we want, from ultimately living the life we love. The things that you're afraid to do but really ultimately want to do. What separates us from the best versions of ourselves? And the answer is usually fear, right? What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail? I mean, the possibility is endless. And the reality is that there's a possibility of failure at all times. But it's not a matter of a failure, it's the fears that come with it. The fear of the bad outcome, the fear of the bad feelings, the not doing well, the not succeeding, the people dying. You have to just pack it and bring it with you. You can keep it with you. I keep this in mind all of the time because I feel like when I'm about to do something big, and I remember these days very clearly, going to visit my mother in the hospital. Now her surgery was over, she was alive and doing well, but I still felt like I had such a big weight on me, that there was such a long road to recovery, and that I would vividly think of Elizabeth Gilbert and these moments. The first moments in the morning when I would get out of bed and feel like overwhelmed, I would take a breath, and I knew that the anxiety wasn't gone, the fear wasn't gone, but I would just power through and get ready. And I would feel it as soon as I got to the hospital and I was walking down a very long corridor to get to her room. Like, this is what it means to walk through your anxiety and through your fear and through your pain and through whatever to get to the next level. That you just pack it with you. And something about that I don't have to get rid of all of the anxiety in my life in order to get to the next level. I just have to take it step by step. I just have to remember that I'm packing my fear and my anxiety with me. And that along with that is also all of my strength. When we feel overwhelmed and we feel anxious and we feel bad, we have to remember that even though we don't feel like it and we don't remember it and we aren't aware of it, our strength our best attributes are also packed in there. We're also carrying them with us. Even if we feel like we can't tap into that at that moment, we're still there. They're still there. We're packing all of ourselves everywhere we go. And so no matter what's making us anxious at that moment, whether it's something in the physical present, something we're about to do, or if it's just mental or emotional or something that's coming up or in the past or about even the unknown, we're also packing our strengths and our ability to tackle those tasks as they come and as they need to arise in our lives. And so that's what I'm really trying to tap into. I try to remember the positive, and in the moments when I don't have the strength to care about, it could be worse, expression always bothered me, even though I use it all the time. I'm grateful and aware, and sometimes I'm just fearful and anxious, and it's okay. It's okay to be wherever you are. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. Everything is valid, and just do whatever you have to do to get through it. And like I said earlier, if you're really battling depression or anxiety on severe levels, please seek help from a professional and let the ones that love you in. Letting people in is one of the greatest gifts that we can have as humans, and the shared experience, whether it's through books or actually communicating with people you know and love, is what makes it worth it. What makes us connecting on a human level worth it. So I hope this helped, and I hope that everyone is having a wonderful holiday season. Until next time.